Commercial Radio Deputy Chairman Yu Ching resigns. A Japanese freelance journalist reportedly held hostage by an armed group in Syria. And France may strip dual citizens' nationality in terrorism cases.
Good evening. The Japanese government is seeking information after reports that a Japanese freelance journalist is being held hostage in Syria and threatened with execution. Yasuda Junpei was said to be held captive by an armed group. Paris-based Reporters Without Borders, or RSF, said earlier this week it had information that the abductors had started a countdown for a ransom to be paid. RSF also said the captors had threatened to kill the journalist or sell him to another group if their demands were not met. Japan's Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga said this morning the government is doing its utmost to deal with the situation but wouldn't comment on any details. In January this year, 2 other Japanese nationals, including freelance journalist Kenji Goto, seen on the left, were killed in Syria by the Islamic State militant group. The Japanese government said at the time it would not negotiate with the militants for their release.
The government of France is taking bold steps to fight the threat of terrorism. It plans to strip dual citizens of their French nationality for anyone who dares to partake in acts of terror. Sonia Artero reports.
French Prime Minister Manuel Valls called extremists who carry out terror attacks traitors of the nation. He said they should be stripped of French nationality if they're dual citizens.
C'est une sanction lourde que la nation est légitimement.
Valls called the blind killing of fellow citizens in the name of an ideology the ultimate betrayal and the kind of culprits who deserve to have their citizenship revoked. So the government is seeking Parliament's approval to strip French citizenship from those with dual nationality who've committed serious crimes. Under the bill, convicted terrorists will still undergo trial and be sentenced in France. Only after serving their prison time will the convict be deported back to the other country for which they hold nationality. Valls insists that now, more than ever, France must step up security given the latest intelligence. He says more than 1,000 people have left from France to join extremists in Syria and Iraq, and 250 of them have now returned to French soil. Such was the case in the November 13th terror attacks in Paris that left 130 dead and hundreds wounded. Evidence proves that among the attackers were French-speaking men who left to fight for Islamic State. Facing a war against terrorism, jihadism, and radical Islam, Valls is pleading with Parliament to allow authorities to do this and more to protect the country's residents. Currently, only naturalized citizens can be stripped of their French citizenship. Extending the measure to all dual nationals has divided politicians on both the left and right. The proposal has also come under fire from human rights groups. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
The office of British Prime Minister David Cameron says it is looking into the case of a family of 11 British Muslims who were refused permission to board a flight from London to Los Angeles. The family of 2 adults and 9 children were told by a US official that their right to travel had been revoked as they waited to fly. The UK's Prime Minister David Cameron is under pressure to investigate an apparent case of discrimination in which a British Muslim family of 11 was not allowed to travel to America. They were planning a holiday at the Disneyland resort in Los Angeles, but were told they could not board their flight because US authorities had decided there were problems with their visa.
We actually felt humiliated, alienated, because the way we was dealt with, it was just out of the ordinary.
The issue is sensitive because US Republican presidential contender Donald Trump has called for a temporary ban on Muslims visiting the US over concerns about extremism, especially since the Paris attacks last month. British lawmaker Stella Creasy, a member of the opposition Labour Party, said US officials gave no explanation for refusing to allow her constituents to board a flight from Gatwick Airport last week.
What's been troubling to me is they're not the only case that I've seen involving a wide variety of travellers, but one common denominator, people of Muslim faith. And naturally, there is a growing concern that that might be connected to this.
Creasy has contacted the Prime Minister seeking his intervention. She also says there is growing fear among British Muslims that aspects of Trump's plans are coming into practice, even though they have been widely condemned. A top Muslim group in the UK said cases like this appear to be related to religion and are worrying for British Muslims. Security has been tightened at Istanbul's main airport after an explosion at the city's second biggest airport left an airplane cleaner dead yesterday. Police have increased stop and search operations at the entrance to Ataturk Airport. Yesterday's blast happened at Istanbul's other smaller airport, but the cause of the explosion remains unclear. The blast, which also injured a second cleaner, went off in the middle of the night as a Pegasus Airlines plane was parking. The explosion also damaged 5 aircraft.
Russian politicians have held talks in Moscow with the leader of Turkey's pro-Kurdish opposition party. He used his visit to criticize Ankara for shooting down a Russian warplane last month. It comes as Turkey intensifies its campaign against the militant wing of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK. Russia imposed economic sanctions on Turkey after it shot down the Russian fighter bomber last month. The visit by the leader of Turkey's People's Democratic Party is likely to further damage ties between Moscow and Ankara, since his party is a staunch political foe of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his AK party. A Thai court has sentenced 2 migrant workers from Myanmar to death for murdering 2 British tourists. The case has marred Thailand's image as a holiday paradise. The bodies of Hannah Withridge and David Miller, both in their 20s, were found on a beach on the island of Koh Tao in September last year. The woman had been raped and bludgeoned to death while her male friend died from blows to the head. Migrant workers Zaw Lin and Win Zaw Tun admitted to killing the tourists, but later recanted, saying police forced them to confess. But the judge stated DNA found on the rape victim matched the defendants. While the defence team vows to appeal, one victim's family said the evidence proved justice has been served.
A pre-dawn fire at a hospital in Saudi Arabia left 25 people dead and 107 others injured. The blaze broke out shortly after 2 a.m. today at Jazan General Hospital in the southwest of the Saudi Kingdom. Officials say the fire started on the first floor of the hospital in the intensive care unit and the maternity ward. Firefighters and rescue teams rushed to the scene and brought the blaze under control. The injured were transferred to other hospitals in the area. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. In Hong Kong, radio personality and deputy chairman of commercial radio Yu Ching is stepping down from her post. Her resignation will take effect on January 1st. Xiao De Silva takes a look back at the career of one of Hong Kong's biggest media personalities.
In a video of commercial radio's Christmas party posted on the station's Facebook page, Yu Ching sings a song she wrote. The song is about how dreams become reality if one chases after them persistently enough. Commercial radio has since released a statement saying Yu's resignation will be effective on January 1st. It also says there isn't a party that eventually doesn't come to an end, and expresses respect for Yu's decision and appreciation for her hard work. The statement stops short, however, of announcing who will replace her. Yu refused to answer reporters' questions as she left the studio, while some staff said they only learned about her decision at the Christmas party. Everyone is kind of shocked and unhappy. She was our leader for 35 years and she will be missed, this one said. While another employee noted that Yu was smiling probably because she will now have more time to do the things she couldn't while she was working. Yu first joined the station in 1971 as a DJ and was later promoted to commercial radio 2 executive and program director. After leaving the station for a while, she returned in 1988 as a general manager and would join the company's board of directors the following year. In 2004, she faced one of the most controversial moments at the station. At the time, Teacup in a Storm, a controversial show hosted by Albert Cheng, was cancelled, and later, Wong Yuk-man, who was a radio personality at the time, was fired. At the time, she said evils tend to grow stronger when you bow down to it. Yu was friends with some of Hong Kong's most influential figures. Last year, she attended the memorial event for Sir Run Run Shaw. And Juan da Silva, TVB News.
On the last day of his duty visit to Beijing, Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying told the media that Premier Li Keqiang said Hong Kong needs to plan for its future. Leung quoted the Premier as saying the SAR should take into consideration the country's needs and Hong Kong's expertise when making such plans. The CE believes the key word in the Premier's remark is expertise. He said that's what Hong Kong can contribute to the country in its further development, which will in turn keep up the momentum of development in the SAR. Leung said Hong Kong will also support and make good use of opportunities brought by the country's One Belt, One Road policy. The CE also met with the chairman of the National Development and Reform Commission before returning to Hong Kong this afternoon.
And still ahead on the news tonight, a look at Christmas Eve celebrations. The Hung Yi Cook threatens to take the dispute over the so-called ding rights to Beijing. And customs officers seize $10 million worth of suspected counterfeit medicines.